Hello there and welcome back to the Govrnor Show. The Govrnor Show is dedicated to board enthusiasts and aims to debunk the myth around board governance. The Govrnor Show is a series of weekly episodes featuring talented and experienced guests. My today's guest is Frank Maene from Volta Ventures. Hello, Frank.
Good morning.
First of all, I would like to introduce you properly. Frank, you are managing partner at Volta Ventures, a venture capital company looking for seed and early stage companies in IT and software in the Benelux. You have been working with software startups for the past 25 years, both as investors, coach, and board member, and also as an operational executive. You are still very involved in the board world. I think we might say that you are seasoned board specialist, and we are very, very happy to welcome you at the Govrnor Show.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. We do have a little things to hand over to you.
Okay.
An object.
Okay.
Yes. And this object is it's a piggy bank.
Okay.
A piggy bank with a Superman logo on it. And I give it to you.
Thank you.
Yes. You can
Thank you
put
so
it on the table. But why a piggy bank, Frank? Why? The object is often related to our childhood and our first coins, or seed money, and serve as a pedagogical device to teach the rudiments of savings. In certain countries, they are often given as gifts because they represent luck and good fortunes. We thought it was a nice link to your expertise, both on the coaching part of young startup guys and on the importance of venture capitalists in helping companies to grow and make it a lucky story. What about that, Frank?
Super. I used to have one of those, but not with the Superman.
That's fine. The topics of the day is venture capitalist, exclusively capitalist, or it's more than that. And to bridge on the topics, my first question is the following. What is the role and value of the lead investor at board level?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's traditional. Like any board member, you have a duty of care to the company, of course,
Sure.
First and foremost, which sometimes, people think venture capitalists only think about themselves. That is not the case. We can't do that.
Yeah,
I've been active as a VC for 20 years. You have to care about the companies first.
of course.
And about yourself second. So that's number one. So you talk about strategy, you monitor progress, you inform shareholders when and if needed, but again, you act in the best interest of the company. What is different in our role as a VC when we enter into a young seed stage startup company is that we help them grow the business and evolve into more corporate governance. We are aware of the fact that it's a startup, corporate governance is very informal, and the first few board meetings we have typically are elevated management meetings, if we are very honest. Very quickly after the first few board meetings, we try to evolve into something more, a little bit more corporate governance now, where the roles and responsibilities of everybody in the board is clearly delineated. What we also need to pay attention to is typically for the founders of a company who are used to act as founder, that on a board they have to wear a different hats, and that's something that they need to experience over a few sessions, in fact, and over time. So they're not only board member, they're also they're not only founder or manager, they're also board member, they're also shareholders, and there's three different hats that I've seen many startups struggle with.
And CEO.
And CEO, and that's something we try to help with, coach them in the first 6-9 months, so that after 9 months they see the different hats that they wear.
Sure.
And that they need to point out, now I'm talking as a shareholder, now I'm talking as a board member, now I'm talking as a founder. And that's an additional role that we see that we get as an investor. And a second role that we also have is, looking at runway. Typically when we invest, we're the first institutional investor. After us, there's typically 2, 3, or 4 more funding rounds.
Yes.
Before their break even or strategic exit happens, for example.
Indeed.
I will always need to point out, look, take care, because after 18 months, typically you raise money for 18 months, After 18 months, you will run out of money. Let's pay attention as after 6 or 9 months, let's start, looking at, are we reaching our milestones? What is our new presentation? And can we help you introduce you to other potential investors? So those are the different roles that we also look at.
You talk about corporate governance. What would be a good definition for you of corporate governance?
Thinking about the company first and foremost. I think that's
it.
The best interest of the company.
And I think that's the best definition, by the way. Next to the financial aspect, what is the VC mission towards its clients?
Well, it's a very good question because we have 2 or even 3 clients. People think of us as, investing in startups.
Yes.
And we try to help them and try to help them grow and evolve. But we also have to another party at the other end, which are our investors.
LPs.
The LPs, the limited partners,
Yes.
who bring in the money into the fund. And people tend to forget that we do venture, which is the startup, but we are also capitalists taking care of the money that some investors have given to us. So on the one hand, we need to take care of the startups as best as we can. But at a certain time, we need to think of liquidity and returning capital to our investors with a return. And that's the 2 customers, the 2 clients, like you put it, that we have. We also have the community at large. We have institutional investors. You have Finance Invest Brussels has been here already. Yes. They're one of our investors in the fund. We also have a duty to the world outside. We help innovation. Because we finance startups that innovate, and 70% of the money that we invest typically goes to people. So we also are very attach a lot of importance to employment. Yeah. So those are the bigger goals that we see in the community.
The combination between the interest of the LPs and the founder actually doesn't care much about the LPs, he just see you as VC. Is it sometimes tricky to balance the two of, as a VC, LPs on his side with their own interest, performance, return, ROI, and the startups who actually just wants to grow and doesn't get that quickly or something like that? Do you see sometimes...
Well, venture capital, I say typically a fund exists for 10 years.
Okay.
It invests in companies in the first 3 to 5 years, and then it tries to grow and exit those companies the following years. And what I typically say is I'm in the business of venture capital. Typically the first 5 years we're in the business of venture, and the last 5 years we're in the business of capital. The first 5 years, my investors read about a company that raised money not from us, and they call me, Frank, why didn't you invest in that company? It looks sexy. I said, well, we didn't invest because there were a few issues based upon which we decided not to invest. After 5 years, they don't talk about that anymore. They ask, okay, Frank, so how are the companies growing? When can we expect a certain return? And so it's venture the first 5 years, it's capital the last 5 years. It's a bit...
Very interesting. How do you choose your target companies, Frank?
A number of things. First and foremost, when we invest, there is no or little history. There are no numbers, not a lot of numbers to analyze when you see it. So you need to look at the person in front of you.
Okay.
It's the team. That's are they passionate? Are they knowledgeable? Are they smart? Do they have a spine? Are they very motivated to make it a success? Is the team complementary? Because if you have 5 developers, that's going to be difficult. If you have 5 salespeople, it's going to be difficult. You need a mix of the 2 groups, in fact.
Of course.
So you need somebody in product development, somebody in business development, and that's an ideal team. So team is the number one thing. The second thing we look at is the market opportunity. How big is the market? What is the opportunity? What is the issue in the market that they're looking to address? And how do they see the market evolve in the next 3, 5, 10 years? Without numbers, but just the vision. How do we see the market evolve? And then we look at competition, of course. What's the product? How do you position yourself against the competition? What's your go-to-market model? What's your pricing model? How much money are you looking to raise? All these things, in fact.
Looks familiar to me.
Yeah.
But the competition, it's a good point because sometimes you have really innovative technology out there and without much competition because they are too innovative to have already competition. Do you take the risk to go that far? Or you need to have not a blue ocean, but something with more competition out there?
we focus primarily on enterprise software.
Enterprise software.
And there's always an alternative.
Of course.
And the most classic alternative in all enterprise businesses
Yes.
is Excel.
Yes.
Well, so everybody is using
Word.
something, or Word. Everybody is using something already.
Yes.
And so there's always not exactly exact competition, because a Volkswagen or a Ford are not the only competition. You could also use a bike
Yes.
to come to work,
Yes.
which is not a car. You could also use the train or the bus or the tram or a step. So there's many alternatives that are different but try to achieve the same goal.
Sure.
So we like to understand the ecosystem, the market
Yes.
today, and the players in the market.
You try to raise up the context of the company, right? With some competitive insight, the competitive
Yes.
analysis. You have a team of person at Volta who's doing that, who's doing
Well,
some
we have
research?
associates, and their job is to look for new startups that are
Yes.
interested, and also doing due diligence.
All right, all right. My last question for you, Frank, is how does a VC position itself in an era of easy access to cash?
Yeah.
We all know that today it's something strange is happening because actually cash is very easy to catch, and you have a lot of competition among VCs even. What's your vision? What's your point of view on that?
Where you have competition amongst VCs, not always competition, because you often co-invest together.
Yes. Yes.
So sometimes you chase
The
the
same
same
rabbits.
deal, but sometimes you just call one and say, let's do this together.
Yes.
And how do you differentiate yourself? By demonstrating potential value add right from the beginning.
Yes.
Not after the investment, but before the investment. You know, I suggest you go talk to this and that person as a potential salesperson. I suggest you go talk to this large company as a potential prospect. So you already start, you know, doing, did you consider this and that as competition? Your financial plan, is it realistic?
Yeah.
So you try to do that as soon as possible, and to see if you have a click. If you get along, because you will need to be working with one another for 5 or 10 years. So that's what you try to do against, you know, other VCs. But you also have business angels, corporate VCs,
Yes.
who are different. And VCs compared to angels and corporates, this is our job and our only job. An angel has other activities, doesn't like to do due diligence, doesn't like to negotiate shareholders'
Yes.
agreements, doesn't like to go to detailed financial plans and so on.
Sure.
So, but for us, this is a job. This is
the
what
job,
we're going to do. We also don't take sabbaticals, because, you know, we are being paid by our investors to
Of
do
course.
the job. So we are always present. So we're going to be present for the next 10 years. So I think that's, and if you compare to a corporate, corporates change. People change in corporates, and your sponsor may have another job in business development, in marketing, I don't know what, in the corporation. They may freeze the budgets. They may be focused not on capital gains, but on the strategic or on learning from the startup, because some corporates invest in startups to learn from the startup, and they're not looking for any capital gains. So that's how we try to position ourselves in that ecosystem.
I have another question, because it's very interesting. How do you manage expectation in terms of company valuation? Because we see crazy valuations today. And founders, they reading the press and see some peers who do some super extra valuation and multiple, etc. How do you treat those aspects?
You're right. I've been active in the market for 25 years, 20 years as a VC. I've had the dot-com bubble, experienced that. It has never been as crazy as it is today.
Yes.
There's a lot of money floating around, negative interest rates, so people put money in funds.
Yes.
What I've also seen is it's become very international.
Yes.
Silicon Valley funds 20 years ago never went outside of Silicon Valley.
Of course.
Then they went to the States, but now they're in Belgium,
Yes.
they're in the Netherlands,
Indeed.
they're all over the place. So there's a lot of money going around, but the danger with the higher valuations are twofold. One, people don't read the fine print sometimes.
Yes.
And sometimes a high valuation may be compensated by liquidation preferences and
Yes.
warrants and other funny business. So
Yes.
take care. Valuation is not everything. There's also terms. And another danger is also, you also need to grow into the valuation. Because if you raise money, typically raise money for 18 months at a high valuation, 18 months later, you're expected to raise money at twice the initial valuation, hopefully. But it may be that your revenue is not growing.
And then
and then you will have a down round, and then it's big drama.
Yeah.
And that's people ignore that. Yeah, let's make the valuation as high as possible. It's great fun. Yeah, it's good for the ego, but there are some issues that you need to be aware of.
Because founders, young startups, always think the company valuation is higher than a VC is thinking.
That's the game.
That's the game. I think today the multiples are crazy when you see out there, especially in the States. I think it's very important also to temper expectation there. Is it your role to temper a bit the founder?
We need to temper, because everybody comes to us thinking they're the next, Facebook or whatever, and you have to think that as a founder.
Yes.
Otherwise, you don't start.
Yeah.
But they have to be aware of the fact that we're a small local fund, and we alone see 2,000 companies per year who all think they're going to be the next whoever.
Yeah.
And so it is a hard world, and
of course,
most of the companies are not going to make it. So we hope they all will, but we need to impress some sort of realism on them. For look, it is hard in there, and it's great raising some money, and it's good for your ego and the publicity. But then the hard work starts.
Exactly.
You need to build the product. You need to sell. You need to raise the next round of funding, and it is very hard.
Yes.
It is very hard.
Frank, thank you very much. I value this conversation. I think it was very interesting.
And thank you so much for the gift. I will put it here.
Let's do that. Let's do that. The piggy bank of Frank.
Here?
Frank Piggy Bank. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And thank you. I hope you enjoy the show. You can follow us on our social media, and I'll see you next time.